are starting a vlogging project that is frankly born out of misery and despair. Because I am in the middle of editing my reading 10 years of Goodreads Choice Award winners for mystery thriller. And if you've seen that video, you know that good times were not had by any, okay? So it's not been fun, and it's not fun to have like my main vlogging project be one that I'm dreading. So as an antidote, I don't know if you can see them, you'll see them throughout the video, but I just pulled a stack of 10 books, and I may switch some of them out, which is why I'm not showing them to you right now, but I wanted to read books that I'm fairly sure that I'm going to enjoy. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm taking books that are already on my TBR / in 1 or 2 cases. Yes, I did buy them from these videos, but mostly these are things I already was interested in that I have then seen on Booktubers Best of the Year lists for the end of 2022. I'm hoping that basically this can be a redemptive best of list. So the idea is if I already own them, or if I was like prompted to buy them independently of this project, because I just came up with the idea, probably I'm going to enjoy them, I'm hoping. So this is meant to be a lot of just like fun reading, enjoyment reading, and because I'm not going to show you the stack until I get through them, I am going to have this be positive vibes only. So if I end up not liking a book, you're not going to hear about it in this video. And I love that for me. I love that for you. This is like positive vibes only, books that other booktubers have enjoyed and books that I also am enjoying. So stay tuned for just a bunch of books that I like, because I have earned this from the just sheer level of disappointment that my stack of Goodreads Choice Award winners has heaped upon my head. And maybe I'm just feeling it more strongly because I'm doing the editing right now. But anyway, that's the concept. I will check back in once I have read a book that I like.
Number 8 is another genre blend. This is sci-fi horror, or kind of a dystopian horror novel, but I decided to put it on this list. That is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. I'm so happy that I finally got around to reading this. I had heard a lot of people talk about it, and it's not a very long novel, but it certainly packs a punch. This is by an Indigenous Canadian author, and it is set in the far north of Canada, following a tribe of Indigenous people who are dealing with apocalyptic incidents at the onset of winter. I don't want to say too much about this, but it's definitely twisty. It has moments of horror and tension, but also just really beautifully written prose, and it's got these wonderful characters. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something a little bit different.
The other honorable mention would be Witch Hat Atelier. I have fallen in love with this manga, but the reason it is an honorable mention is because I just haven't read that much of it. There's not even that much of it out right now. I do have a in-depth discussion that I'll have linked over on a secondary channel that I have, and myself, my husband, and a friend of mine have been chatting through it. The beginning leads you to believe it's just this really sweet, fun type of story. Maybe it's a little bit escapism fantasy, because you just get lost in the just absolutely mind-blowing, beautiful artwork. And you kind of get lost in the sweetness of your main character, Coco. And there's this quest for knowledge that she has, and you're just filled with the same wonder that she has when you read it. But then there's some pretty heavy things that are, if not alluded to, then shown to you. And it makes you kind of wonder how serious the story is going to get, how dark the story is going to get. And there's so much to still uncover.
Number 8 on this list, I feel like is a little bit of a surprise, but it's going to be Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Julie McAllister. Now, this could be recency bias, is that a word? Because I did just read this for my video where I read the Goodreads Choice Nominees for Mystery Thriller, and I feel like I didn't speak about this enough in it because I was kind of like exhausted, and I was reading like 6 books in 3 days or something, and I don't know, I still do find it easier sometimes to talk about books I didn't like and point out flaws than point out what I love about a book. But this is a mystery thriller where a woman witnesses her son stab someone and murder someone, and he's taken into police custody. Her and husband go to sleep. She wakes up, it's the day before. and then she does it again and wakes up it's the day before that. So she keeps going back in time, and she figures out essentially what she thinks the reason that's happening is because she has to stop that from happening. It's just such a unique take. I thought it was so different than anything that's out there at the moment, and I liked that it wasn't Groundhog Day. She was going back and back in time.
So I've read 3 books so far, and I've liked all 3. So this is great energy, and the energy I was hoping for to start this project. So, Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabashig Rice. This is, I would describe this as dystopian horror, where basically we've got an indigenous tribe in Canada who is living in the far north, and they've been forced to leave their kind of like ancestral territory, but they've resettled in this new land, and one day the satellites stop working, and then the power goes off, and then people from the south are slowly encroaching on them again, and they have to just figure out how they're going to handle this new changing situation that is growing increasingly unstable. So what I like about this is the atmosphere. There's this really lovely growing sense of menace. I think some of the themes in this are really wonderful, particularly around the end of the world in a dystopia, how that is analogized to basically the end of the world for this tribe. Like, they have endured the end of the world already when their home and way of life was taken from them. So really this is just it happening to them again. Like, I thought all of that was really lovely and poignant. I think I struggle with the actual writing in this one. Do you ever have something like it's like the words don't ring in your ear correctly? There's just something a little discordant in my listening ear for reading with this author's writing, which is a real shame because I think that it's very much my kind of book. This is very much Bethany's kind of book. I see why this was on her list. Yeah, I mean, I like this and I would recommend it. I'm bummed I didn't like it more. I think I would have liked it even more if I had gotten on with the writing a little bit better, but I did still enjoy this, and I'm glad that this prompted me to pick that up. This is the newest book out of all of these on my that and one other one. I had picked it up already on Elle's recommendation before I decided to do this video, so that is why I included it. And this is so charming. So Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1 is about a young girl who longs to be a witch. She lives in ye fantasy world where there are witches, but she thinks that witches have to be born, but she really wants to learn how to be a witch, and she has received this mysterious book and this mysterious drawing device from a witch with a evil eye hat, and one day things go very wrong in her world, and all of a sudden she may have the chance to become a witch. So this is very charming. I think the actual illustration is very lovely. Like, I really like the style and like the little artistic flourishes throughout. I don't know that I loved this. This wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to read this whole thing immediately. Is this a series I see myself continuing on in? Yes. Was it as cozy as I was expecting? No. And I think I was expecting it to be a little cozier than it is, but it is a very good magic school kind of story so far, and it left off in a particularly intriguing place. So I do believe that I will continue on with this series, and I'm very glad for the recommendation because I had not heard of it before Elle was gushing about it. So I'm excited to have a new graphic novel series to enjoy, or a new manga series to enjoy. Then we get to The Goat. And maybe we're peaking early in this vlog because this is one of the best thrillers I've ever read, at least for my tastes and sensibilities. This is so poignant and has so much it is saying about time and the nature of relationships and the nature of living daily life with the people you love. Sorry, my battery died, so I had to change that. But what this book is about is basically in the opening scene, our main character, Jen, her son is walking home from hanging out with his girlfriend. A man approaches him and he stabs him and kills him. And she has no idea why. Her and her husband are there. Something is just off. She has like this weird feeling. She's also just devastated. And when she goes to sleep and wakes up the next day, she is a day behind where she was. So she knows what's going to happen, but she can't do anything about it. And she keeps waking up and being a day in the past. Sometimes she's more. And it's her in this like time loop trying to figure out if she can prevent this from happening. And as that's happening, she's learning, it's just so poignant. It's her seeing her life again and reliving her life again on some big days, but a lot of it is just like her daily life with her family and the new lens and perspective she has on it. And there's also this mystery she's trying to solve. So like on top of this really, what I think lovely character work that's happening and sort of like beautiful story about how you just can't appreciate your life in the moment the way that you can retrospectively. I don't know. So basically the mystery is really good. Like I really like the mystery and how it unfolds and it makes sense. I think it's very well plotted. But I don't know. Maybe it's two things. One, I think I'm finally old enough. Like, when you're younger that people talk about like, someday you're gonna look back and you're gonna reminisce or you're gonna think of, I think I'm finally old enough that I could relate to the things that she was experiencing in terms of like, oh man, like I didn't appreciate this when it was happening, or I couldn't have appreciated it when it was happening the way I can now. Like I relate to that. But also I think if you are somebody who has lost a parent because her father is dead at the beginning of the book, now she's going back, he's alive again. Oh gosh, I'm gonna tear up even just talking about this, but I think if you've lost a parent, this is very poignant for that of like, yeah, like the last time you talk to them, you just don't know that that's the last time, you know what I mean? So, sorry. So I just thought, I really just love this book. Basically, I thought it works completely as a mystery, but what makes it the next level is that it delivers on the promise of a very cool premise. And like I said, I just think that the emotional resonance of this is just lovely. So I now would say that this was my favorite my favorite thriller that came out last year for sure. So I've filmed a video suggesting what should have won the Goodreads Choice Awards for the last 10 years. And I need to go back and edit that because I would definitely have voted for this over The Maid if I could go back in time, so to speak, and do that. Yeah, I absolutely love this, and I'm so thankful that Meg loved it so much, and her enthusiasm pushed me to pick it up when I saw it at Target. So, I mean, we could just end the vlog here, I guess, but I do have more I'm gonna try to read, and hopefully you'll see more check-ins from me with more books that I've enjoyed. If not, things went downhill very quickly from here. So, hopefully I'll be checking back in with some more things I enjoyed reading.
The next two I'm going to group together because I love them for similar reasons, and that would be Half a Soul and the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches.
I feel like I had to put these next two on here just because I've been in such a weird reading mood, and they have really been soothing my soul, and I've realized exactly what I want to read right now. So I had not heard of this book, and I think Elle mentioned it one time. I don't even remember what we were talking about. And she was saying it was just really like cozy, very cute fantasy. And so I borrowed it from the library, and like I said, I didn't know what I was getting into. But essentially in this world, we have witches, but they, the people don't know about them. Their belief, the leader basically of their coven essentially was under the belief that it was best if they don't interact with each other. Like the witches, they only come together these certain times a year for this random meeting. Anywhoosie doozy, our main character, I might have forgot her name, but that doesn't matter. So she is a witch, but she also is on TikTok, and she does like witchy TikToks. And anyway, she gets contacted by this man who's at this house, who's basically requesting her to come out there and teach these young little witches, there's 3 of them, I believe, basically how to yield their magic and their power. And so it is just, I was so worried for the babies when this upcoming deadline and what was happening and what they were worried about. And then like the romance, it's not like a fantasy romance, but it is definitely a fantasy with romance.
Next is Out There by Kate Folk, and this is a collection of short stories, and it really is about normal, everyday sorts of things like relationships and dating, but also like things of this moment, like there is a mysterious disease that we watch people sort of come down with and then try to recover from. And on top of all of that, Kate Folk adds a sci-fi element that makes things very creepy and weird. I love weird books. This was so weird and I enjoyed the crap out of it. It also, from a craft standpoint, is exactly what I enjoy from a collection of short stories. It has a strong enough theme that all of the stories are brought along and connected, but it doesn't feel too samey. And I love short stories that build me up to a place and then just kind of drop me off so that you're left wondering and thinking and wanting more.
So then I have Half a Soul, which is by Olivia Atwater, I believe. And I've seen this one around and I didn't really know what it was for a while. And it is another fantasy. I would say it's a fantasy with romance. I don't know if you would exactly call it a fantasy romance, but that's just my opinion. But this is like Regency fantasy. And so we have this gal, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry. And at the beginning, she has this encounter with Faye, and the Faye takes something from her, and so she's never quite right after that. Her family has died. She's living basically with her aunt and her cousin. Her aunt is just always like, what are we gonna do with that girl? She's weird. How are we gonna marry her off? And so her cousin is having like her coming out in society, so they go into London for this time and for her to meet, a husband. And they meet some more gentlemen who are there, and one seems very persnickety, he has a very interesting reputation around London. Didn't that sound good? Okay, but seriously, I can't say more than that because it's gonna spoil it. But yes, again, hug me. Just felt so good. Just a lot of like humor, and like the persnickety dude, like, oh my god, he was something else. He was just so sassy and like did not have time for people. And I was like, same. And I just liked watching the romance blossom in this story.
Hey, batch number 2. Well, I wanted to try to talk about Half a Soul and the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches separately, because I see them talked about together so much that I was like, I'm gonna be different. I'm not like other booktubers, but I am like other booktubers. I see why people want to talk about these together. I should say I gave both of these 4 stars. I really enjoyed both of these, but they feel almost disappointing because I was expecting to love them. And I want to give you my take on their genre situation because it may help set your expectations accordingly. So both of these have been pitched as cozy fantasy to me. There is a certain coziness about them because it has an intense emphasis on community. But I would submit to you that these are both romances that just don't have maybe like the most conventional romance plot structure. So like they're structured a little bit more like a fantasy novel as opposed to a genre romance novel, but they're basically different flavors of fantasy romance. This is a paranormal romance in my opinion, and this is a fantasy romance in my opinion, with like not I get why people want to say they're fantasy with romance. And I guess to some degree they are, but as fantasy, I don't like them as much. But when I think about them as romances, I like them more. Does that make sense? It's like they both are slower burn or like less conventional speculative romance. I don't know if any of this makes any sense, but basically I probably prefer Secret Society over Half a Soul by just a little bit because this one felt cozier to me than this did. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think this is all that cozy. I do like the cast of characters. Like if that's what you mean by cozy, then yes. But to me, there's like a lot of plot happening in this for something that I think of as cozy in fantasy. When I think of cozy fantasy, I think of like a lot less action. And I felt like this actually had quite a bit going on, especially at the end, right? Like if you've read, do you see what I'm saying? People who've read this, I don't know. I gave this 4 stars. I feel like I'm being negative on it. It's not that I'm It's not that I'm negative on either of these. The reason that you're hearing about them is because I like them. That's like the whole concept of this vlog. But I didn't love them. And I think the reason I didn't love them was I was expecting something that they just aren't. So I'm trying to give like another voice in the chorus of people who are recommending these books right now to help you figure out if these are books that you would like. So I didn't like this one quite as much overall. I probably liked the romance in this one a little bit more. So, you know, do with that what you will. Then I have to say the opening I was here for because I liked that Vanessa had as much agency in that as Dora did. I thought that was rad. So I think there's sequels to this. I looked it up and it looks like it's not following the main couple that we established in this one. So I don't think I'm gonna read those. I think the third one might be with their daughter. But anyway, I'm not gonna continue on, not because I had like a huge problem with this, but just because I think I got what I wanted from this world in this story. So I'm good. I would read more if this was a series of this one. I don't believe that this is going to have a series though. This does have, I think, a lot of the charm I would expect from a cozy, but more in the vein, like the book this really does remind me a lot of, and I know you've heard this from everyone, is The House in the Cerulean Sea. In terms of the way that the kids are incorporated, there are, you know, children in peril in this as well. But it just has a different vibe, I think. This reminded me quite a bit of the overall kind of feel and vibe of TJ Klune. Like humor, maybe also humor-wise, this one worked a little bit better for me, so that might have been part of it. I liked the sort of like quirky whimsy of it all and the sort of sardonic love interest I enjoyed. And particularly the reason I want to say this one is a romance is because there's a Pound Town scene that I'm like, this is like full on like what I would expect from any romance. So all that to say, I did enjoy this. I liked the quirk. I liked the girls. I really liked how it took what I thought was a plot hole and made it the third act twist. That was exciting. And I was like, I see what you did there, Sanju. I'm into this. So I would definitely read more from this author and I would read more in this world. And I think once I got my mind around it, for me being more of a paranormal romance, that's just like a little unusual in its plotting and pacing, I enjoyed it a lot more. So to me, there's a certain coziness to this, but I would not call either of these cozy fantasy. I know. Fight with me in the comments. I'm here for it. Okay, the one that I liked best from this batch is Out There, because this is a weird ass book, man, and I was into it. Like, yeah, there are some wackadoo stories in here that I thought were great and so thought-provoking. The reason I'm giving this is verging on 4.5, and I may bump it up to 4.5 at some point. The reason that I'm putting it there is because, as with most short story collections, there are ups and downs, and for me there were a few stories that felt a little like clunkers to me, but there are some great moments in this. Like, I flagged it made me laugh out loud many times. I flagged the first time it literally made me laugh out loud. Okay. This is so weird. So there's one of my favorites in the collection is called The Last Woman on Earth. There's literally one woman left on the planet, and she has a daily talk show, and all of the men tune in to like observe the one woman left. And she has a segment where she goes and has like girl talk, but there's no other women's. So it's just a mop, and a producer comes out and like shakes the mop sometimes. That made me laugh out loud. There was many things in this that made me laugh out loud. If you've ever been on a dating app, I think that there are moments in here where you will feel seen. I think that this has a really strong thematic element of like feminism via Black Mirror, that kind of weird dystopia stuff, and like how women are surviving and thriving, big question marks there, in a increasingly dystopian reality. So I thought the themes in here were great, some really memorable stories, some clunkers, but honestly I kind of love that. Like, that means she was taking some risks, and I would definitely read more from this author, 100%. I should just give this 4.5. I'm like gushing about it days later. That probably means it's a 4.5. I don't know. I'll decide. Whatever I put in post, that will be my final rating, but I really, really love this, and if anything I'm saying appeals to you, I would definitely really recommend picking this up. This is my second favorite thing I've read so far. So, second batch, more consistent. I gave all of these 4 stars. These this would be my favorite. Half the Soul would be my least favorite. But there's range, as you can tell, even within a, little cohort of 4 stars here. And hopefully I'll have more books to talk to you about. I don't know yet though, so stay tuned. Either this is the outro or there's at least one more batch of books coming. So say hello to my sweet little codependent boy. He always wants to be near me, but it is thundering out, so he was sitting right next to me the whole time. He is my biological son, and I love him so much.
The next one on my list would be The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Jisha Villashaw. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I, for some reason, thought this was a nonfiction book, but it is fiction. And it's basically short stories of various secret lives of church ladies. But I think the reason this one has stuck with me is because I have either a part of a story or a full character from the story I have either related to personally or I know those people like in the church. And basically they're telling you their stories of like, this is who they are outwardly into the church, but these are their feelings like behind closed doors and things they're not comfortable or wanting to share because of being in the church. And so those stories were just super unique. I think that you would even find them really compelling even if you didn't relate to them directly or knew someone.
Next is Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This is an adult science fiction, and it follows multiple timelines, 1912 in Canada, and then in the future on a moon colony. And in the future, we're following an author who's on a book tour on Earth when a pandemic starts to spread. So we watch her through the beginning days of that pandemic. And what ties all of the timelines is like the sci-fi element, the unexplained phenomenon that each of them sort of witness or come in contact with. I love the cross-section where Emily St. John Mandel lives. Her stories are like science fiction, but not like super science fiction. It's just like a little science fiction as a treat. And they're like literary fiction, but not like super literary fiction. It feels like very commercial literary fiction. And so I find her writing very accessible and almost deceptively simple. I love it.
Number 9 is The Last Cuentista. This is one of those rare like middle grades that make it on my list. This was a delight. This is about a young woman and her family who get to leave Earth to try and find another planet because we've messed up Earth. You know, classic sci-fi premise. And when she goes into cryosleep, something is not right. And when she wakes up, no one she knows is around. The status quo of the ship is completely different. They're not on a planet that they should be. And she needs to figure out what's happened and how do I get out of this situation. And it's tense. This is a very tense, high stakes middle grade. And I really enjoyed it. And I love that our main character is really good at botany and science, chemistry. But at her heart, she's a storyteller. That resonates with me, and she's Latina. Like, you get like these flashbacks to her relating to her grandmother where she learned a lot of the stories from. It's a beautiful story.
Okay, guys, I just finished the last book on my lunch break, and I am emotionally rocked right now, but we're going to try to wrap batch 3 up as well as the whole vlog up. So, the 3 books I'm going to tell you about: Secret Lives of Church Ladies, Sea of Tranquility, and The Last Cuentista. So much emotion in these 3 books. They're all absolutely devastating in their own way and wonderful and beautifully written and exactly what you would want from the kind of book that they are. So, first of all, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Jisha Villashaw, I think is just so raw, and even though this is centering the Black woman, femme experience in the Black American church, I, as somebody who was raised in Southern white fundamentalism, found a ton to relate to in this book. And it's really just, it's kind of what it says. Like, it's the things that are not presentable in a religious community, these women have to hold and keep secret in some way. And the writing is really beautifully simple. I thought that there were some of these that had really wonderful punches to them, and particularly the ones that were shorter. I feel like this really shone in the short stories in here. But they were all really good. I think The only reason I'm not giving this a 4.5 is that I think that there was a little too much sameness. Like, there was several stories that to me felt like they were kind of the same idea, but just in the context of a slightly different story. So I think if that had been changed up a little bit, I probably would have given this a 4.5, but this is verging on a 4.5. This is so good. If you're looking for a short, really impactful short story collection that has to do with religion and gender and race, like, this just is doing a lot really beautifully, really well. I can totally see why this was a National Book Award finalist, why this has been recommended to me, why Jess had it on her list. Like, this is really, really, really good. I highly recommend this. As I'm talking about this, I'm like, should I give it 4.5? I don't know. It doesn't quite feel, it feels like an extremely strong 4, but not quite a 4.5, I think. It's all a little subjective. But anyway, loved this. Then Sea of Tranquility, as good as everybody said it was going to be. Like, I've not read something from this author before, and I'm so glad that I picked this up. I know that I'd gotten some comments when I hauled this of like, oh, you need to go back and read the first books, because I guess they have like a slight level of interconnection. I didn't feel it as this being my first book from her. I didn't feel like I was missing anything, but this definitely incentivizes me to go back and read those other books because of how much this just really surprised me at how page-turnery it felt, given that this really is a literary book. I think that this is a great pick for people. This is, again, one of those kind of bridging books. If you're into sci-fi looking to try something more literary, or if you're normally a lit fic reader looking for something more genre, I think that this could be a really good pick. This book was so emotional to me. This has a lot, the theme of a lot of these books, I feel like, is time and like I don't know, sort of the like existential wistfulness is kind of the vibe of a lot of these books. And this one has that too. It's set in different time periods, and has something to do with time travel, let's say. This is probably one of the most successful time travel books I've ever read, including Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I would say that is definitely a very successful time travel book, but so is this. And I just felt like the prose was so beautiful, but not flowery, which is something I love. That was also true in this one. That was also true in Out There. So beautiful, so well observed, but not purple. I really loved what this made me feel in terms of the nature of reality and of the passage of time. And then I think the bonus, like the cherry on top of all of this, is that it takes place in part in Canada, in kind of like a little bit up the coast in BC, and I lived in Vancouver for 3 years. Like, I did a lot of retreats in that area, so I just think it evoked Canada in a really lovely way too. So this definitely what makes me want to go back and read more from her, to get some more great like Canadian vibes, apparently, but also just I thought this was really wonderful. So I thought I would enjoy this. Like, I went into this expecting it to be 4 stars of like, oh, I bet this is going to be a really good version of a lit fic. So this surprised me at how much I enjoyed it. And then the surprise devastation that I feel like Angela did not prepare me for in this book is The Last Cuentista by Donna Barba Iguera. You guys, this book, I was crying throughout. This book is devastating. It is so much for a middle grade, but in the best possible way. This book is beautifully written and observed. Like, it is aimed at the target audience. Like, it's not like I feel like it's written for adults. But the way this book, do you know what this reminded me of? It's how I felt when I read A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Coletti, of like, oh, so you're just gonna devastate me from the jump, and I'm just gonna keep being devastated throughout. So much happens in this. This is like a space travel-y kind of novel where our main character, like, there's basically a comet that's gonna hit the Earth. So we're hauling ass out of Earth trying to save people, and her parents are both professors or like doctors in botany and geology, so her family is selected to be a part of the ship, but her grandma is left behind in the beginning this book killed me with the grandma, but her grandma is a storyteller, and her grandma, I'm like tearing up even just thinking about this. Her grandma is like, has taught her all these stories, and so her elective is going to be a storyteller. Yeah, so she's a storyteller, and when she wakes up, she realizes something has gone very wrong, and it's a lot about politics and about time and science and family and story, and this book is so good. Oh my god, I can totally see why this was a Newbery Award winner. This book is devastating. I mean, if you can't tell, I'm very much trying not to cry right now. This book is amazing. Oh my god. Such a surprise hit. So again, I would have guessed I was gonna give this like 4 stars, but no, 5. Certainly 5 stars. So with that, so that I don't cry, let's move on and kind of sum this all up. So let me do a quick little rank ordering here. Okay, so of the books, I pulled 11 books ultimately. One of them I just decided I was not gonna have time to read as a part of this, but I'm still gonna read it eventually. Obviously, I own it and I'm excited for it, but one book I'm not gonna read, and then one book I DNF'd. But you don't know what that is. So I read 9 books. I enjoyed all of these. So 9 out of 10 I finished and gave at least 3.5 stars to. This is an incredibly successful little project here. So I gave quote unquote worse books, but they were still so good, were Moon of the Crusted Snow and the first volume of Witch Hat Atelier, which I'm definitely going to continue in now because I keep thinking about it. So gonna keep going in that. And then I gave 3 books 4 stars. All of these were pretty solid 4-star reads, which for me is like an A-. Half a Soul I'd put at the bottom of that, then Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and then just on the bubble, 4.5 is The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. So we got some secrets in this stack, apparently. And then of the 9 books I finished, I gave 4 of them a 4.5 or a 5 star. So that's incredibly successful. If I did go ahead and give Out There ultimately a 4.5, because I keep thinking about it. There's just some real impactful stories in this little collection. So I keep thinking about it. So we're gonna give it the full 4.5. But of these 4 books, 3 of them are sci-fi in some way. We've got short story collection, we've got literary sci-fi adult, we have what I'd probably call literary middle grade sci-fi, and then we have a thriller, with a speculative element. And these are so good, and I'm so glad that I have a full palette cleanse from my 10 years of Goodreads winners. Though to be fair, Sea of Tranquility is also a Goodreads winner, so there you go. But this was such a good palette cleanse. This was such a successful reading project, and it was just filled with joy. This was just a project of joy and of celebrating other people's favorite books and some new favorite books for me. And this was just one of my favorite reading projects I've ever done. I know that this isn't like the most elaborate in terms of concepts or like editing or whatever, but God, this was so successful and so joyful, and I'm so happy. So anyway, please go check out all of the videos that I've referenced in this one. I will have all of those creators tagged and linked to the videos that I clipped below, and this was I'm just leaving you in a very joyful, happy place. So let's all be glad about that. The wind is blowing so hard outside that my neighbor's trash can is moving, so I feel like I should go try to secure that before my next meeting. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know what you thought about them. Let me know if you are in just as much of a happy book place as I am as I leave you here. And yeah, I think that will do it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!